So there we go, folks. We're now recording, as you can hear. I'll shortly start sharing my screen and taking us through the Game Maker setup here. So allow me to pop my video off because it can sometimes mess up with the stream, the lag, you name it. Any questions before we get started here? You quite happy?
I'm quite happy.
Good stuff. Right, so I made a couple of wee assets there just to kind of bring in. So first of all, I'll open up the Game Maker environment just so you can see what we're looking at here. We'll be creating a new one, but first of all, and this is what we did last week, it's a good idea to get your folder structure set up so you know exactly where you're putting this material. So I'll put this here as NQ scrolling shooter 2. Long awaited sequel to last week. So inside this, just like previously, we've got your documentation. It's always handy to keep alongside with a folder for our assets, which we can copy them across right now. Just take them in there. And finally, we've got our project files here. And that is where we're going to save our new Game Maker file. So let's go to File, New Project. And for this, we're going to be using Game Maker language. Drag and drop, as we spoke about before, it's a kind of more primitive way of getting the logic in. We're really looking to use GML or Game Maker language. I'll be showing off a bit later how we can go up to the manual and basically access any GML that we might need. There's great reference material up there. So there we go. We're going to select the folder that we just created and we're going to just make it in there. So scrolling 2. Just save in here. And that's us. Now we're looking at the Game Maker environment itself. So what we're looking at, well, the most important thing here is your workspace. Just down at the bottom here, there's some informational tabs. This will make more sense when you're actually running the game itself. Right now, we don't actually have a game. We've got a room, which we can take a wee look at here. It's a room with nothing inside it. And that is the current dimensions there. So if you look up here with me, there's an option up here to run our program. I can just go up here and left click it, or I can hit F5, which will run. And you can see down at the bottom there, it's compiling, entering main loop, and now it's doing what is set up. And that's our game, well done, that's it, it's running. Unfortunately, there's no game in here, so we're gonna have to start creating objects to place in this room. Before we do that, however, the first thing I like to do is basically set up the room dimensions, make sure everything's nice and happy in our first wee room that we'll be working on. So for this example, we're going to take a wee look at the width and the height of room 1, and we're just going to switch that over 768 to 1366. And that is basically set up for mobile, well, certain Android and iPhones, but it gives us a wee handy, environment to set up initially here for a scrolling shooter, and you'll see why once we get things going. So that's fine now. The next thing we're going to do now is basically start setting up our objects. We're going to have to import some assets as well. So it's a good idea to basically start at the bottom and then work your way up. So I know that I'm going to be bringing in basically the following objects. So I'll start creating these. So in Asset Browser, on the right hand side here, you can see there's a bunch of folders that are basically pre-arranged for us to start putting items in. You can incidentally create an object in the paths subfolder here it just ends up messy. So just stick to what's already set up there. You can also set up your own folders as well if you so need. But this is how I generally like to approach this. So the first thing I'm going to create is my player. And you'll notice there, the prefix that I've given that is obj. Now that is just so that I can keep all these different types of components and objects that we're creating here nice and tidy in my own mind. And as you can imagine, when this scales up and you have a lot of things going on, it very quickly, can get out of hand. So having that wee bit of organization can help. So object, we've got a spawner there, obj, we're going to have our rocks coming down, so obj rock. And we're also going to have a projectile that we shoot. So obj laser. Oh, make sure to capitalize that. I think, oh, sorry, not forgetting, we are going to put this in first of all. It's a nice wee handy tool and it shows off what we can use controllers for. So this will make sense in a wee minute when I show it off, but we'll call it OBJ Dev Tools for now. So that's us, we've got our object set up. Before I move on to coding these, and that's what we'll be doing in the events here. You can see now that these have popped up, having been created, and they're just sitting there ready to be, further defined. So you can see here, there's an option to put a sprite in it, a collision mask, all these things that we can then determine really from this point. The important thing for us next will be events, but I'll explain that once I get these assets in. So sprites, we'll go down here, and just like we're doing above, we're going to create corresponding sprites for our objects that need them. So down here, you can see the option sprite, and I'll set this up. And again, just being consistent, SPR, sprite, SPR underscore player, import, and I will just bring in the asset that I had earlier on. Oh, so there we go, assets, ship sprite. And it's just telling us here, this is not an undoable action. You're importing it. You can obviously delete it after the event, but that is absolutely tiny. That might not be suitable, but we'll see how it looks on the screen. So I'll just set that up now. You can see here that there's a little anchor point that starts out on the left here. Just through sheer habit, I'm dragging that down to the middle of the object. Sometimes you will want it set up to a certain point, but generally centralizing it is a pretty decent approach to start off with. So that'll be the center point for now. Just know that we can change this at any stage. So now I'm going back to sprites. That one's been set up. We can then hook it into the player later, but just bring in the rest of them. Create sprite, and this one will be SPR rock. And just like we did above, we're going to bring in the rock, not the rock himself, the rock sprite. Once again, just centralizing roughly. We can tidy that up later if we need to. And you can see here, collision mask has been set up to a rectangle. I'm going to change that up actually. There's a way of getting the, yep, there you go, precise frame. So that will get the actual object itself. So now it's going by the actual, precise frames. I'll actually do that for the sprite player at the moment as well. Collision mask, and you can see there it's given us the whole rectangle. I will change this to I don't really know if I want to do this per frame or you can see here slow as an option. It might be better using slow. We'll see how it affects the game. Basically, this is happening every single frame. That's what it's telling us there. And generally, that could be quite a bad thing, but we'll see how it impacts performance. So, sprite. The reason it gives you the option though is obviously there will be times where you want that absolute precise detection, you know. And our last one here, SPR laser, and this will be one that we actually just have to quickly create up, make here. So I can show you how to actually create an image originally. You just go to edit image, and then there's a whole bunch of tools you got here. So let's just set up a wee simple laser looping effect. It's maybe too fun. I'll try and put a wee off color maybe. That's a bit rubbish. We'll just leave it like that, it's fine. That'll do for now. I might actually change this to red. There you go. That's a wee bit more laser-like, I guess. So that's fine. We can adapt that if it looks too large for the player and all the rest of it. These are all things that we can adapt and change at a later stage if necessary. So that should be us. Player. There we go. I'm just going to set that up to this at the center. Collision mask once again. Rectangles, perfectly fine for this. As you can see, it's a rectangle already. So that's an easy one. So there we go. That's us. We've got our sprites now set up. We can start bringing them into our objects. One wee final thing that we're going to add in that's a visual asset for the moment will be a background, which again will be a sprite, but I like to sort of put in the like its own specific prefix, so we know that it's a background. Just call that background space nebula. For this one, I'm going to import this one, space background. This one is quite large, so we'll see if that impacts. It should compress it in the first run and then be okay beyond that. But we'll have to just double check that. But anyway, moving back to our actual objects for coding now. We've got our sprite set up, they're ready to go. So now it's just a matter of actually bringing in the code, which is going to fill our game space. Which right now is absolutely empty, as you can see. So I can take a wee look at the room for just now. And we can already look at background. We can bring in the background that we've just imported there. So I will set that up to background space nebula. And the way this is going to work is that we're going to vertically tile it. And then we're going to set a vertical speed here of 3, I think. We'll see how that looks. And because it's tiled, this should repeat. And you can see it there, rescaling it. And there we go, folks. We've got a somewhat seamless. You can see where the reflection takes place, but that gives us a seamless nebula. Personally, I thought that looked quite cool. It was making me think of the Batman symbol. But that's us. We'll be looking at this background many times as we test our game, no doubt. But yep, we can see it in action. So that's us. We've done our first wee part there. I'm going to jump back to DevTools here. And in DevTools, we're going to create a step event. And what a step event is, the main ones that we'll be using here are create events, step events, and alarms. You might have some key down, key pressed, things like that. But we can also put in actual GML checks for them. So that's not as necessary. But create and step events, you'll need those. A create event is created upon the room creation. So as soon as if an object is placed in a room, then whatever is in this create event up here is going to happen. That's it. It'll be set up, and that'll be the way it is once you commence. step events. They basically happen every single frame. So we already seen now that we can check for collisions each frame. Well, this step event does whatever is in here every single frame of the game. It's set up just now to 30 frames, and yeah, we'll keep that how it is. So the first thing we're going to do, we don't really need the create event in there. That's fine, we can delete that without any issues. The first thing we're going to put in here is just a simple wee command from GML, and it's game end. See here the function, game end. That should function the way it is. So let's just run this. That's not happening. Game end. Let's try it. What I'm expecting here didn't quite happen, so never mind. What we're looking here, folks, is for a key pressed. We're looking to simply set up a wee simple escape function, which is located in others. Escape. It's a pity. I was hoping to show that off with the step event, but we can do it through this. We go to backgrounds and we drop in our dev tools here. This is going to ask you to do this the first time. And yep, you're going to create a new instance layer. And this is the instance layer where you're going to have your basically any of your objects. That's what you're going to be manipulating here. So I'm hoping once I run this. Yeah, there we go. That's basically what I was looking for. I hadn't added in the object, folks. Easy to forget, but you've got to add the object in before it's going to affect the game area. That should make sense. In fact, I made the exact same mistake last week, so that's obviously a mental block that I've got for that first object. So you can see there that that's basically started up and then kicked us out immediately. So that's demonstrating what I'm after. The object itself on the step event is basically ending the game after one frame of play. So let's code that out and hit play, see what happens. Cool, we're back to the way we were. And if I hit the escape key, hopefully we're going to see what, yeah, that's what we're after. So the game now ends when you hit escape. So F5 to run it and escape to end it. That's you. So first wee bit done there. I'll leave in the step event just in case there's anything that you want to add in there eventually. And it's a good wee example of this code has been commented out. You can see here, there's some green text here. The green text, I should explain, folks, isn't actually doing anything. It's just a wee explanation of what's around it. So it allows you to comment your code. You're going to be encouraged to comment your code because, well, first of all, it means that you return to your code and you know what you meant when you did it 6 months ago. But more importantly, sometimes it's so someone else can come along and pick up your project or work alongside you, and they can easily see what's going on. So that's the first object there been set up, folks. We're going to jump onto player, which is probably the chunkiest, but that makes sense because it's got the most going on inside it. It does make sense to start out with a player when you're creating any new game because it gives you your first point of contact, really, so you can actually get hands-on with the title itself. So you can see here, I've added a create event. I'm also going to add a step event. And if I hold down my middle mouse button here, you can see that I'm actually panning around here, so I can quite easily basically control this workspace. There's a couple of control modifiers. So if I hold like scroll keys, just up and down, if I hold shift, it's going to go left to right instead of up and down. If I hold control, it's going to zoom, and it zooms to a point, so you can kind of navigate using that. A little bit untidy, but that's the ease of seeing the workspace here. You can see already what we've been working on. So zoom in here, we're going to be working in our create event first of all. And you can see here the two tabs. So create, and these will be the initial settings. So sometimes called the initials, INIs. You can set these up ahead of time, particularly if you know what direction you're taking things in. But more often, and sometimes it'll be more fluid, you'll be hopping between your step event, your create event, you'll be bringing in new elements. I'm just going to set up the health at the moment to, let's just set it up to 1, that's fine. And a couple more that I want to bring in here. Cooldown equals false. This is going to be our shooting cooldown. This will tie in with our laser. And, you know, obviously I was talking about alarms. This is things that we tie in with our cooldowns. This is how we create timers. And this check here is just to basically check and see if the player is dead or not. And we're setting up a global value here. That's what global dot is for. So global value equals false, and I'm going to set that up to our and right now it's giving me these wee yellow warnings here. That should be fine once we've got it set up. What I'll do just now, folks, is comment this out. I know it's working fine once you've got the interaction set up. So right now, the wee yellow warning sign, it's basically telling us that, you know, it's only referenced once. That means it's used in here and it's not used elsewhere. That's going to be sorted in a wee moment. So I'm jumping across to my step event now. First thing to set up here will be our control inputs. I'm going to create a little section here. And I'm going to set these up here. U key equals, and this is going to be the command for it, keyboard check. It's popping up here, and I'm looking for this one here. And when you're following along with your folks, you are going to want to basically just make sure you're copying out the code. Obviously, it's the way it is for a reason. At this stage, we're just trying to kind of build that initial understanding here. So I've messed up something here, give you a second. Yep, that's us, brackets out of place. So what I'm going to do here is just copy this one across. And then I'll change the different elements that I need. And this is basically us setting up our WASD, which some people may prefer. I find that a little bit easier to use. See, I'm just saying that changing this to be up, down, left, right, WSAD. And that's us corresponding. Next key we're going to set up is our shoot key. We'll set this up for our spacebar. The way we do that is BK space. Perfect. So now we're going to start bringing in the actual means of which we control these. So if U key, the variable that we've set up, then we're going to use our curly braces here. and just start setting these out. So again, I want 4 of these. I'm just going to change these to match. So U key, D key, L and R. And now we're going to basically start controlling the object. So earlier on, we'd set up a speed variable. We are now going to take that speed variable away from the Y position of our player object. That will move it, in the up direction. This one here, we're going to increase the Y value. Excuse me. So that'll be Y plus equals speed. With the horizontal directions, yep, you guessed it, we're going to be using the X variable. X plus or equals, I think that's minus one. If I do mix these up, by the way, it's not much to change them. But sometimes you've got to watch out for that. You put in your key inputs and suddenly it's moving in the opposite direction. So that should be fine now. Cool. So already we've got a little bit of code there to manipulate. And we can test that out by going back to our room. We'll take our object player. First of all, in fact, we'll assign a sprite to it, excuse me. 36 by 48, so that's going to be tiny. I might have to juice that up in the actual illustrating environment, but we'll have a wee look. So cool, go back to the room and I'll place the player in. I mean, it's cute, so we'll see what it looks like. I like it, but it is a little bit small, if I'm honest. There you go, you can see WASD, that's us, we're moving around. Nothing else is happening, but we're able to move on screen. If I move off screen, well, there's nothing stopping us, so bye-bye forever, spaceship. Same with up the way, and same going down. We'll put in a couple of fixes for that as we develop this player character a little bit further. Escape to exit our program. We're gonna do a little bit of hopping about here because we're going to be creating things to shoot. So we need something to shoot, and then we're going to be bringing our rocks. We need to have a spawner to create our rocks. So I might be flipping around between the objects, but I'll be clearly explaining what we're doing and why we're doing it. So I'm going to set up the shoot key, and it's not going to shoot anything because, well, the laser isn't set up to shoot at the moment. We can set that up after the event. So if, and now I'm looking for basically a joint qualification here. So in the circumstance that these two are, well, false, then the thing's going to happen. You'll see that in action. But that's a way of combining two states, two circumstances, two checks, basically. The and just lets you combine them. And then you're looking to see that both these are false. If that is the case, then this thing is going to happen. And the thing that we want to happen is our instance create, and one for layer here. We want this to happen basically on our object, so XY, and then the next part will be 0, that will be our depth, and finally we're popping down object laser, there it is. There you go, folks. So you can see if shoot key and cooldown is false, instance create object laser. That's essentially what we're doing there. Taking this a little bit further, I'm going to have to flesh out the alarm and the cooldown itself. So what we do, once we have shot, we're going to set the shoot and cooldown to true, and that means that we're going to get a timer rolling for however long it is between shots, and then that means that we can hold down our button, and then there'll be a space between firing. If we didn't do that, you would just have every single frame our bullet would fly out. So cooldown has been set to true, and this is the alarm that we'll be running with. So alarm 0 equals 100. Might change that value a bit later on. I think last week it was a little bit too long, so we'll change that to 1 a second, 30 frames, and that'll be fine. So what I'm going to do just now is get us to hop back. Since we've just basically spoke about our first alarm here, I'm going to set that up by adding an event, alarm, and then just as we've said down here, alarm 0. And this will be what happens in alarm 0. And we're simply looking to set up the cooldown. Really easy. If this alarm has run its course, then the cooldown goes back to false, which allows us to shoot again. And that's the wee loop that we've sort of built in there. So logically, I'm hoping that makes sense, folks. I'll keep blasting on if it doesn't. You will have the ability to go back and check this out. See it in action. So that's us. We've got our player components up to the point at which we've shot. So let's jump across to our object laser. I can set up the sprite. There we go. That's now, just like we did with our player, it's now assigned to this object. The laser itself will require a create event. We're going to have a step event. I think we're okay for an alarm, but I'll double check. I think we're okay. Right, so initially, when this is spawned, so in our create event, this is where we add our motion add. This is where the illusion of it, the actual result of it moving rather, is going to come about. So I'm just going to basically make your lives a little bit easier here by quickly explaining what's going on here with the plus 90. So direction is set to an increase in X. So that basically means that if your player character was on the screen, let's just bring it up. It's not going to run because I've not set this up yet. Sorry, folks. We'll show it off in a second. We'll just get this sorted out. But the motion, you're changing the angle by 90 degrees. It would previously go right, and now we've got it going upwards. So it would fly off this way, but now we've got it going this way. That's fine. So as soon as it's created, it's going to go up the way. Perfect. That's what we're looking for. Now we're going to put in a couple of wee, and I described this previously as housekeeping, but we're going to be checking to see if the laser has gone out of bounds, which means it's flown off the screen. I asked folks last week what would happen if we had a whole bunch of lasers piling up off screen, and they were quite right in identifying, you've got potential memory leak. You're going to start losing frames because these assets are still getting tracked, they're still accounted for. Once they're out of our game screen, out of our life, we know they're not coming back, we want to just get rid of them. So if y is less than or equal to 0, we're going to instance destroy. Basically get rid of our individually shot laser. And to carry this on, so if, otherwise, else if y is more than or equal to 400, 1400, sorry, and this is like above, beyond bounds up the way, we will again instance destroy.
Why did you put it as 1400?
Because our screen dimensions are 1366, that gives us a little bit of wiggle room, you know.
Right,
So
okay.
it lets it disappear off screen and then it's gone, you know. If I was to set that to like 1200, then you would see it disappearing, you know. But this is something that I'll be encouraging folks to play around with, have a shot at messing about with the numbers and see what happens. Oh, there you go, the first D story of the day. Instance destroy. And just to close this off, else, and then we just leave this one as a blank. So what's going on here is if this thing here, destroy it, otherwise this thing here, destroy it, otherwise nothing. And what that ends up resulting in is, in these two cases, something will happen, and in every other case, nothing will happen. That's exactly what we want here. That's sometimes called an else if ladder, and it's a way of controlling, you know, logic, the structure, when things, how things happen. So there you go, folks. That's basically a little bit of housekeeping there. That will mean that we don't get loads of you know, things piling up on top of each other. Now we're going to move on to our collisions here. And this here I'll just put in as a out of bounds check. And this one here, we're going to have our collisions. And this will be with both the getting rid of the rock and basically getting rid of the laser as well. So var inst equals instance place. This. And again, x, y, and this is basically just declaring that on the position of the following object will be j, a rock we're looking for. Place meeting, and this will be for the actual, you know, meeting of the objects when they actually encounter one another. X, y, will be j, rock. Right number of brackets there, yep. Oh, sorry, I'm going to have it in mind here just to keep us balanced, because this is us, we're going to be nestling this within. See there, I'm placing the curly braces inside, and to close that off, we're going to basically have that there. And in these cases here, instance in destroy, and I'll just copy that out with here. And that's basically covering us for both the rock and the laser. I'm not sure what the problem here is. Should be fine. So, cool. We've got our laser set up. And we can't really check for the rock at the moment, but I just want to check and make sure the actual shooting functions. There we go. So we've got our wee guy shooting every second. We don't have any sound effects in like that. That's something that we can add later. But I've got the functionality so far. WASD and shooting. So moving on now to our, you can see the final two objects here, our object rock and the spawner. We will have to create a wee bit more in the player object, but yeah, we should actually be able to set them up just now, in fact, without impacting anything else. So let's just do that. So moving on to a new wee section here, we've got our basically our controls all dealt with up here. Now we're going to be dealing with the boundaries. So X boundary, and on the X's, I think we want to switch that over so that we've got it teleporting. X boundary teleport, and we want a Y boundary clamp. And I'll be describing and demonstrating what both of these are. Teleport's pretty straightforward. Clamp, maybe less so, but you'll see it in action. So, X, let's try this. The width of the player was about 40 pixels, so this should be about 20 or about 18, something like that. If y equals is equal to minus 20, then we want the thing to happen. Y, X equals room, and we're going to use room width here. Room width, and that's an inbuilt variable. That's basically shown by the green here, just like the alarm there. So room width minus 20 once again. So what we're going to see once we get this basically set up here. So if that case, else if, and we'll get this set up here. X. Catch that other case here. Room width. Room width. And then once again, close that off. Curly brace. And there's our gap to work with here. And y equals 1. So I'm home. That should be us. Oh, sorry, y. Why am I jumping onto y? It's x. We're playing with the x value here. This is a boundary teleport for a horizontal. There you go. You can see it switching between sides, and that basically fixes us for a problem of our player disappearing into the ether, into the unknown. The other one that we're going to figure out here is just for the top here. We'll get a clamp in place so that we can't run off the game area, and the same for the bottom. And that does. We'll have our game area nice and secured. So that's the boundary for the X, and we'll get the clamp now. The Y value. So and this one's quite an instant. Well, quite similar. In fact, we've got our room height that we're going to be playing with now. So Y equals clamp. Y 0 plus sprite, and this just gives us our a value of 0 plus the sprite height, basically. Yeah, again, inbuilt variable. It's just taking it from the measurement of the actual sprite, and this will ensure that it does actually line up quite nicely. We'll divide that by 2. The room height itself, we'll set that up to, I might have to play around with this, but we'll set that up to 1350, and I think that might be okay. We might have to drop it, in fact, we'll drop it below, so, in fact, no, that's fine, 1350. Which should give us our room width. So, let's go that. room height screen. And what I'm doing here is just commenting internally. So that's what the asterisk and the forwards and backwards slash does here. Forward slash, excuse me. It lets us basically code within sections. And basically what would happen if we code there? It just gets rid of everything after that on that line. This allows us to basically code within sections. So it's quite a handy wee thing. So that should be us for the Y clamp here. Let's try that out. And there we go. Now we're basically stuck to the top here, and it should work for the bottom as well. Well, we can't go any further than that, and now we're teleporting across. So that's us, but our players can't run out of the area. Nice and secure. So again, folks, that's sometimes a wee bit of housekeeping there. A lot of this stuff just kind of comes naturally. Last wee bit here will be our health check. And this will basically end the level or get rid of the player once the health check has come back as equal to or less than 0. The reason you do equal to or less than is that sometimes you can take 2 bits of damage at once and then you get down to -1 health and you're not dead. It feels a little bit strange, but that's came up in testing before. I'm sure you'll run into it if you do it long enough. So if HP is equal to or less than 0, we want to set global .dead equals true. And we're going to have to go in and reactivate that. An instance destroy self. There we go. And to create event and basically bring that back in. That's a little bit concerning, but let's see. Yeah. We'll see what's happening, folks, when I get the rocks in. Then we can actually test the damage. Right now, I can't really test this, so let's just ignore it. That's fine. And we're going to move on to our spawner and rocks now. It makes more sense to start out with the rock, I think, simply because then we can test it out by putting the rock in the actual scene. So there's a wee bit of numbers here involved, where, again, we're just going to first of all set our sprite to the rock, and a little bit of numbers here involved in the creation of it, just to get a wee sort of the appearance of random, randomization. So just like I said there, we'll randomize, and then we're going to randomize the following. And this is just the actual speed of the speed, v-speed, built-in variable of the asteroid itself. We're going to set the angle. Again, I'm just going to give it a bunch of values here. And these values are angles. It's degrees, basically, based off of 0 to 360 degrees. And it gives it a direction to shoot off in that's kind of defined within a certain, range, basically. That's what we're doing here. So 270 to 265, that'll be your range. And then I want to start putting in a couple of wee variations in between. So 027, 275, 277, and 283. That should give us a nice little bit of variation in the asteroids here. And finally, there we go. I was wondering why that was grayed out. Image rotate equals, and then we're just going to do a couple of values here. 1, 2, 3, -1, -2, -3. That will give us the rotation at a speed of 1, speed of 2, speed of 3, and then 1, 2, 3 going backwards. Right, so that should be us. Once again, that's obviously not referenced yet. We'll get that set up with your step event here. Step event, and now actually start coding the frame by frame interactions. We didn't want to change that stuff in a frame by frame because it would look really weird if the rock changed its direction, every couple of frames basically. What in reality ends up happening is it gets stuck within the random pattern and it just sits there quivering. You can test that out if you want. So moving on with our rock step events here. We should be able to get that set up now. And we're just going to do the player check here. X, Y, object, a player, shows. Two brackets. Very simply, instance destroy. For the sake of typing this, folks, I'm going to swap that over. For the sake of consistency, I should say. This is our Y value is greater than or equal to 1400 and let's take that further. 1500, just a bit of gap at the bottom. 1500 and instance. This is doing a wee check here. Instance exists. Now we're basically telling it what it's checking for. Player. Then close that off. That's looking good. And you just want to make sure, folks, that you've got the right corresponding number of brackets, curly braces. Typically, your code editor will come back and tell you if there's an issue. And those are one of the first things to check off if you've messed that up. So in here, we're going to simply instance destroy. Again, a bit of housekeeping, but if it goes past that 1500 limit and the object player exists, then we're going to get rid of it. It should be fine with the semicolons in there, but doesn't do any harm. I'm chucking them in for consistency. And we go. So we've got our collisions for the rock setup. What's going to happen is, well, we'll get rid of it if it passes a certain threshold. Now we want to have the laser collision setup. We'll send that. I'll double check that because I think I've actually got it. Yeah, there you go. We've got that covered. So let's not worry about that one. We just need to get the final bit of rotation. Yeah, there you go. Image rotation, and that'll be us. So rotation. Angle. Plus equals image rotate. That should be us for that. And as you can see, there we go. Now we've not got a problem with the image rotation. So just to test this out, I'm going to place one rock, and you can drag any of these elements about. I'm just going to drag a rock in here. And we'll quickly see what this does. Cool. This is, it comes towards us, it's spinning, and we can destroy it. What happens when it hits the player? Nothing. It destroys the rock. It doesn't destroy the player at the moment. That's good. So we've got most of this set up, folks. Let's get the object spawner, which is a nice wee easy one, and then we'll have most of it ready to go here. Obviously, we don't have to set up, any sort of sprite for a spawner. It just exists in the room, much like our dev tools. We use it as a controller, and the thing that it's controlling, it's basically putting in the rocks. So now to do that, we're going to have a create event, and then we're going to have an alarm. We'll set that up to alarm 0. And that should do us. So create event, randomize. Oh, sorry, this is the wrong bit. I'm in the wrong bit. So here we go. Spawn rate equals 50, and alarm 0. Equals spawn rate, and that basically refers it to above. So all good. Now we can start working on our actual alarm event now. So randomize, just like we used earlier on, folks. And x equals 4 random. A lot of randomization here, folks, but essentially I'll explain what we're doing once I've got it put laid out here. Width is what we're going for here. Minus 20. So what this does is it basically picks a random spot across the width of the entire floor, but it takes 20 off the edges. That means that it doesn't place the rocks too close to either edge. So random. And now we're going to basically set this up. So instance at the, we use our instance create depth, rand x height minus 1400, and this will pop it up just above, just out of our viewpoint. On the instance layer of 0, and the thing that we're placing is obj rock. That's what's happening. So we're creating an instance at this randomized X location, at this room height that we've declared here, at a depth of 0, and the thing that we're placing is an object rock. So quite convoluted there, folks, but that's essentially what we're working with. Just to finish us off, this will be the spawn rate. Spawn. So, excellent stuff. What I'm going to do is open up our room again. I'll place down our spawner and we can see what happens. Now we have plenty of rocks coming down. You can see they're all kind of coming in at different rotations and speeds. Just kind of cool. It gives you that illusion of, you know, a next thing to do would probably be set up the rocks to be able to collide with one another. And then, you know, I've done things where it's like cascading off. You've seen how that works. These are all basically the exact same elements that you've just seen in action. You'll just take them a little bit further.